This 24-hour or so media blitz by Kamala Harris has been a complete and total disaster. We're going to start right here with The View. Now, one of the things we keep hearing over and over again is that Kamala is a new way forward. That's her slogan, a new way forward. And people say, well, you can't blame Kamala Harris because of the last 4 years. She's only the vice president. She couldn't do anything from that position. She had no power. So you're crazy to blame her for any of these things that have been disastrous that she's now claiming she's going to try to fix during her time as vice president. So you can't hold her. Now, here she goes on to The View, and she's asked if she'd do anything differently. And listen to the answer.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
Whoa! So a new way forward is the same exact thing we've had for the last 4 years. She tells you right there, she can't think of one thing she would do differently than Joe Biden did over the last 4 years. Meanwhile, Americans are getting choked with the inflation. The economy is shot. There's wars all over the world. And you got millions and millions of people coming across the border. Oh, no, I wouldn't do anything different. This would be exactly the Jets today fired their head coach. It would be like bringing in the new candidate and saying, hey, do you plan on doing anything different than the previous head coach? And the guy says, no, I'm not. I can't think of anything I would change. You don't get the job. You lose the audition. You failed the interview. We don't hire you now. Kamala Harris tells you point blank, there's nothing I can't think of anything I would change. Joe Biden also, by the way, told you there was nothing that Kamala Harris couldn't do that I did over the last 4 years. I delegated positions of foreign policy and domestic policy to her. Here, take a listen.
And as vice president, there wasn't a single thing that I did that she couldn't do. Mm-hmm. And so I was able to delegate her responsibility on everything from foreign policy to domestic policy.
So Joe Biden tells you right there, there's nothing that he did that she couldn't do. So this excuse that, oh, she's only been the vice president, she couldn't do anything. Joe Biden's telling you right there, oh, yes, she could. I delegated policy, foreign and domestic to her. There's nothing I did that she couldn't do. Okay? Now you go over to this 60 Minutes interview that was an absolute debacle as well. This guy totally rips into Kamala Harris, and she's defenseless. We talk about, just focus on the border here, about how she came in with Biden. She was the border czar, and the border problem became a disaster. And 60 Minutes holds her feet to the fire. Word salad answer from Kamala Harris, who has no excuse, because this is the truth. The truth is the border policies of Donald Trump were undone on purpose. They flooded this country with illegal aliens on purpose. So she cannot just tell you that. They can't come out and just say, yeah, well, we wanted the country to be invaded. Even though despite when Joe Biden was running, he was the one saying, surge the border. He encouraged everybody to surge the border. This administration wanted to flood the country with illegal aliens. And it was never about trying to help the poor struggling illegal alien. It was always about helping the Democrats stay in power. And that is why they undid everything that Trump did to secure the border. They undid it on day one. They got rid of all of his policies that had the lowest amount of people crossing the border in history. And here it is, they undid it, and the country got flooded with illegal immigrants. It's unbelievable. Here's the next one. Now she goes on to Howard Stern. She goes on the Howard Stern show, and of course, nothing is her fault, and she calls Donald Trump weak. She says Donald Trump this is a matter of strength, and Donald Trump's too weak. Take a listen.
That this is an election that is about strength versus weakness.
Yeah.
And weakness as projected by someone who puts himself in front of the American people and does not have the strength to stand in defense of their needs, their dreams, their desires, the work that must happen to make sure that we are a secure nation.
So Donald Trump, the guy is only out for himself. The guy who was on stage and got shot in the head, and in that moment that decides whether you have that fight or flight mentality, in that moment, on the world stage, Donald Trump stood up, looked directly into the eye of the cameras, of the people, of America, and said, fight, fight, fight. It's a courageous act by Donald Trump. Even so much so that Elon Musk, the moment that happened, he put out a tweet, Donald Trump has my complete and total endorsement. What we all witnessed was one of the most courageous acts ever in history by a United States president. And not only that, 84 days later, he goes back to the scene of the crime and does another rally at the exact same spot. And we know that this is a guy that has given up a life of luxury to do this. He doesn't need to do it. He got wealthy well before he entered the political arena. He was a multi-billionaire. He could live his life any way he wants. He's choosing to do this because he truly loves America and the American people. Kamala Harris, on the other hand, got into politics and became wealthy because of it. All right, there's two totally different types of people. Now, Kamala Harris goes on the Call Me Daddy podcast, right? She go on there, the man-bashing show. So she goes, first she's on Howard Stern, who has totally said the most vile things about women that you could ever believe. Just a disgrace. Then she goes on to the Call Me Daddy podcast, the sex podcast, and she looks very comfortable. We'll do a side-by-side. Look at her here. Here she is on the Call Me Daddy, all smiles. There she is on the 60 Minutes. See the major difference here? But this is exactly where she belongs. When she's doing these media blitzes and stuff, stay on the sex podcast because that's where she belongs. That's her wheelhouse. That's where she belongs. Next, my advice would be to Kamala Harris, go on the Hawk to a Girl podcast. That'd be the next place you belong. But you do not belong in the political arena with President Donald Trump because she is an absolute lightweight. She's unelectable, she's unlikable, and she's a plant that was selected, not elected.
You're listening to the Alec Show. The future is family.